There is a lake in Siberia that contains more fresh water than all 5 of the Great Lakes combined. Not slightly more, not twice as much. More than all of them together. Lake Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. In a single body of water that sits in the middle of a continent, surrounded by mountains, 2,500 miles from the nearest ocean. It is 5,387 feet deep. That is deeper than the Grand Canyon is tall. The water at the bottom has not been touched by sunlight in 25 million years. Its surface freezes every winter into ice, so transparent you can stand on it and watch the bottom recede into darkness below your feet. Under that ice, live creatures that exist nowhere else on Earth, including one species that was declared biologically impossible by the first scientists who encountered it 250 years ago. That declaration has never been fully reversed. Every few years, satellite images show perfect circles appearing on the ice, up to 6 miles across, geometrically exact. Science has been debating their origin since 1985 and has not reached agreement. There is also a seal, the only freshwater seal species on Earth, living here, 2,500 miles from the nearest ocean. Its closest living relative is an Arctic ocean seal. No one has fully explained how it got here. This is Lake Baikal, the oldest, deepest, strangest lake on Earth. And something is happening to it that the people who study it say they did not predict and cannot yet reverse. Every January, Lake Baikal freezes, not at the edges, completely from shore to shore, across its full 400-mile length and 50-mile width. The ice forms so transparently that in places you can look straight down through 4 feet of it into clear, deep blue water, watching the bottom recede into darkness below your feet. The Buryat people, the indigenous people of the Baikal region who have lived on its shores for centuries, called the lake the Sacred Sea. They did not use the word lake. The word for lake was too small for what this was. The ice cracks as it forms, producing sounds that travel for miles, deep booming and high-pitched cracking that the Buryat described as the voice of the lake speaking. In the Russo-Japanese War, the Trans-Siberian Railway was temporarily routed across the ice, a train running on 5 feet of frozen water over a mile of depth below. In spring, the ice fractures into slabs the size of city blocks and grinds against the shore with a force that moves boulders. Why do you think a lake this size, holding 20% of all Earth's liquid fresh water, older than the Himalayas, is something most people in the West have never heard of? Drop your thoughts in the comments. 5,387 feet. If you stood at the deepest point, you could stack the Empire State Building on top of itself 3 times before the roof reached the surface. The Titanic rests at 12,500 feet in the Atlantic. Baikal would fit it with room to spare. The lake sits in a rift where the Asian continent is being pulled apart. At the bottom, the sediment record extends 4 miles, the longest continuous climate archive on Earth, every ice age since before our species existed. No one has reached the bottom of the sediment. 25 million years of isolation produces biology that exists nowhere else. Baikal contains roughly 3,600 species, 80% endemic, found here and nowhere else on Earth. The most extraordinary is the Golomyanka, a fish almost entirely made of fat, translucent enough to read through, with no swim bladder, no scales, no analogous species anywhere in the world. It lives at depths of up to 5,000 feet, migrating daily, a vertical journey of nearly a mile to shallower water and back. The Golomyanka gives birth to live young in water so cold that its body chemistry would solidify in any other organism. The first scientists who encountered it called it biologically impossible. Their assessment was not entirely wrong. The chemistry that allows it to function has not been explained in 250 years of study. There is a seal in Lake Baikal. Not a river seal that occasionally enters fresh water. A permanent population of roughly 100,000 seals, the Nerpa, the Baikal seal, living their entire lives in a freshwater lake in the middle of Siberia, 2,500 miles from the nearest ocean. The Nerpa is the only freshwater seal species on Earth. Its closest genetic relative is the Arctic ringed seal, separated from it by 2,500 miles of continent. How it got here has been argued for a century. Ancient river connection, or survivor of a larger sea that no longer exists. Neither has been proven. The Nerpa breeds on the ice every February, pups born in snow layers above water that has never been ocean. If this is the kind of story you want more of, hit the like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because what's under the Nerpa is stranger than the Nerpa. Baikal sits on a rift that widens at an inch per year and produces roughly 2,000 earthquakes annually. In 1862, a major earthquake submerged an entire inhabited delta, 200 square miles of settled land with 1,300 people, in the space of hours. The land did not rise again. It is still at the bottom. On the lake floor, hydrothermal vents, geothermally heated water supporting communities of organisms that run their entire metabolism on the chemistry of the Earth's interior, requiring no sunlight, dependent on nothing on the surface. In 1985, Soviet scientists analyzing satellite imagery of frozen Lake Baikal noticed something that had no entry in any geological manual, no precedent in any scientific literature on lakes or ice. On the ice surface, a perfect circle. Roughly 3 miles across, with a darker ring at the edge and a lighter center, the pattern so geometrically precise that the first assumption was instrument error. Subsequent images confirmed it. Then found more. Circles of similar scale appearing in different years, in different locations on the lake surface, sometimes alone, sometimes in clusters. The largest documented ring, 6 miles in diameter. The pattern, always a dark outer ring, lighter interior, oriented with the center above deep water. Russian and American researchers have studied the rings for 30 years. The leading explanation involves convection from hydrothermal vents below, warm water rising and preventing ice formation in a precise circle. This explains the shape. It does not explain why the rings are so geometrically exact, or why their scale is so consistent across different locations and years. The rings keep appearing. The mechanism has not been agreed upon. The Baikal Rift produces methane, not in trace amounts, in quantities visible to the naked eye. In winter, when the lake surface is frozen, methane rising from the floor creates circular patches where the ice is thinner, sometimes breaking through to create open gas vents in the ice surface that locals have used as fishing holes for centuries, without knowing what they were venting into the atmosphere. The methane hydrates on Baikal's floor represent one of the largest freshwater methane deposits on Earth, quantities comparable to several years of global natural gas consumption. They are stable as long as the deep water stays cold. Baikal's deep water has been warming since the 1940s, slowly, measurably, in one direction. The timeline for when the warming crosses the stability threshold has not been publicly projected. The gas is already moving. The ice vents are already there. The people fishing through them never needed to know what they were releasing. In 1966, the Soviet Union built a pulp and paper mill on the southern shore of Lake Baikal. Scientists opposed it, one of the first environmental campaigns in Soviet history. They were overruled. The lake's purity made it ideal for cellulose production. The lake would provide. The lake would absorb. The mill ran for 47 years, discharging wastewater directly into Baikal. The treatment was not adequate. The zone around the outlet became a dead zone, 25 million years of biological uniqueness simply absent, replaced by the chemistry of a process the lake had no history of absorbing. The mill closed in 2013. The dead zone has not recovered. The sediment around the outlet contains compounds that will not biodegrade on any timeline relevant to a human lifetime. The mill is closed. The damage is open. Baikal's water is more transparent than distilled water in some measurements because of a biological filtration system that took 25 million years to build. Tiny crustaceans called episcura, endemic to Baikal, found nowhere else, filter the entire lake approximately every 5 years, maintaining clarity to depths of 130 feet. The episcura are sensitive to temperature. Baikal's surface has warmed 1.5 degrees Celsius since 1946, faster than the global average. As the episcura decline, the algae they filtered are increasing. In 2010, spirogyra, a toxic algae that should not survive in Baikal's chemistry, appeared on the southern shore. By 2020, it covered hundreds of miles of shoreline. The filtration system that maintained the water for 25 million years is failing faster than the models predicted. Lake Baikal is 25 to 30 million years old. The average lake on Earth exists for roughly 10,000 years. Baikal has existed for 250 to 300 times that long. This age is the reason for everything strange about it: the Nerpa, the Golomyanka, the 80% endemic species, the biology that functions more like an ocean than a lake. The sediment records every climate event since before our species. The hydrothermal vents are running the same chemistry they ran 25 million years ago. The rift is still widening. In 25 million years, if the rate holds, Baikal will be the beginning of a new ocean. The water already there has seen every version of this continent that has existed since mammals became the dominant animals on Earth. It will be here when whatever comes after us tries to understand what it is looking at. It froze this January, as it has every year for 25 million years. The rings on the surface above the methane rising from the floor. The Nerpa giving birth on the ice, 2,500 miles from the nearest ocean. Under the ice, the Golomyanka migrating its daily mile on chemistry science cannot explain. Under that, the vents. Under those 4 miles of climate history no drill has reached. Under that, the rift widening. The spirogyra is spreading. The episcura are declining. The dead zone from the paper mill remains. The methane is moving. Baikal has survived 25 million years of geology. The question science is not ready to answer is whether it will survive the next 100 years of us. What do you think? Can something this ancient be protected from something this fast? Drop your answer in the comments. The next video in this series goes back to a place we covered earlier, a sea that was deliberately emptied. But there is one part of that story we didn't tell. That is next. We will see you there.